This podcast is sponsored by MediaHQ, the software platform that makes media relations easy. Thousands of contacts, media lists in seconds, delivering your story into the inboxes of all the right journalists. If you're serious about getting better at media relations, we're giving 20 listeners a free 30-minute media relations clinic designed to help you sharpen your PR process and land more coverage. If you work in PR and you're interested, please email gaye@mediahq.com. That's GAYE @mediahq.com. Thanks for joining us, Sarah. We're here to discuss, I suppose, trends that are happening. You work at the cutting edge of research in MediaHQ, and we're looking at some trends that are happening in the last while that PR people can react to and maybe change some of their strategies. So first up today, big changes at the BBC.
Yes, Jack. So the BBC have recently announced they're cutting up to 2,000 jobs. And this is significant because it's their biggest downsizing in 15 years. And it's about 10% of their workforce now. So it's quite drastic. So essentially...
They've been in a lot of trouble, haven't they? Like every time you turn on the telly, the Director General leaving, lots of crises around presenters, lots of HR issues. It's been one crisis after another.
Yeah, and I think even just their coverage of some events, people don't tend to like either. So I definitely think there's definitely some scrutiny there. So that definitely might have something to do with it as well. I know there's also, there's financial kind of issues there as well. They're facing increasing competition from streaming platforms now, like, YouTube and Netflix as well. And also declining household fee licenses as well. That's another kind of part of why that's happening.
So it'll have an effect on PR people from the point of view of, your relationship with a researcher or producer. A whole mid-layer of those people could be just taken out of organisations.
Exactly, and that's something PR teams need to be aware of. I mean, is the person you've built up a really good relationship with in BBC now going to be gone? Is the programme that aligned with your end user audience now going to be gone? So it's definitely something to take into consideration. And as well as that now, journalists are more stretched. So essentially they don't have time to be, sifting through loads of press releases. So it's really important that your PRs are more targeted and more relevant now as well.
Next up, I used to be a real sucker for Wired magazine back in the day. I'd treat myself and I'd go to a newsstand and I think nothing of dropping 10 or 12 quid on the print magazine. Wired print edition is going in favour of a digital first approach.
Yeah, it is. And I think this is seen in more than even just Wired now. I suppose they're following their audience, right? So we can see more people now are consuming, information online, whether it be social media, YouTube or podcasts. So I think it does show that they're now, looking at this and, taking it quite seriously. And, I don't think, print it doesn't have... the coverage opportunities maybe it used to. I feel like we're going to see more digital now than maybe
and the
did
glamour
before.
of print is interesting in that, I got a press reader account for myself on my iPad at home, and just the amount of if you want digital print, the amount of stuff that's on press reader, just hundreds and the amount of magazines. And then I suppose if you want affordable quality in print, like weekend editions in newspapers, and they're probably facing that competition on all fronts now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, now that you can get access to so many newspapers online, I feel like there's less need for print. And I suppose, gone are the days now that people, they get their piece in the newspaper, cut it out, maybe, frame it or whatever it was, I feel like that's
like us old
common.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it is funny. It is
Yeah.
funny because also, you look at Reddit, you look at, the whole Reddit subreddit, you look at, if I want to find something out from a tech point of view now, if I wanted a recommendation on something, if I want high-level strategic advice, I'll go to certain Substacks. If I want product advice, I'll go to YouTube. So I suppose that's what Wired is feeling at the front line. That's why it's shrinking.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people aren't probably looking to the print anymore for the information. There's so much information available now on these platforms that they just don't need to put that investment into the print anymore.
And it is one of the learnings for PR people here as well. Don't always rely on the traditional media outlet. That subreddits, Substacks, if your audience exists in a place and it's active, you can find them in different places.
Exactly. The focus should be, where is your audience? Where is your community? So if this is on those platforms, then that's where you should be going. It shouldn't just be print for the sake of print,
And finally today then, investment by traditional media in video, in audio, some of it leading the way, some of it being a little bit laggard. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so I suppose like in an Irish context, this isn't news, but, the Irish Independent obviously were kind of the first movers when it came to this. So they put a lot of investment into, their podcast studio, the tech, the equipment, and then now the Irish Times as well. We've
Pretty
seen,
much kind of late to the table on this, like in that,
Yeah.
like only in the last few months have they got fully video enabled on their podcast.
Exactly. They're not new to the podcasting game as a whole, but the visual aspect, it's quite late in the game. And then we've also seen, even with BBC, they're moving programs onto YouTube now.
Yeah.
And RTE as well, I know they're currently working on their YouTube strategy. So we're seeing a lot of these big outlets moving towards this. And I think, again, they're following their audience.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if billions of people are, on YouTube or watching podcasts when they're commuting to work, then that's where you should be investing.
And it's interesting, I bought a premium account last summer on YouTube, and it was because I was going to somewhere that there wasn't a terrestrial TV connection, and I decided I didn't want to spend the whole summer watching ads on YouTube. It's a transformative experience because when you're not served ads at all, you'll watch longer content, you'll watch documentaries, you'll watch different shows, and I suppose it makes sense. Like the example that we were talking about recently was a program like Tracks and Trails about walking, about hiking, and that's being put on YouTube simultaneously with it being broadcast. It makes sense if the audience is there.
Exactly. And I know this is something we talk about a lot at MediaHQ, is the story circle, Jack. And of course, the first step you're going to look at is where is your audience? So I think it does show that they are following this,
Yeah, so if we were to look across the three strands, like digital transformation, end of print, like investment in new media streams, I suppose the overall message here is like get busy, like researching your audience, and like if you haven't edited your outreach, if you haven't edited your lists, you're behind the curve and you need to get doing it.
You do, absolutely. And I think, the biggest takeaways here are your pitches. They need to be targeted, they need to be relevant. And on top of that, I think you need to think beyond a single format now as well. I think the strongest stories are the one that can go across multiple channels. It could make an online article, but it could also make a YouTube segment. It could make a great podcast discussion. So I think, that's where people need to be looking, what it can go across.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for those insights. Very helpful, and we'll see you on the next show.
Perfect. Thank you, Jack.
Laura Wall is the CEO of the Public Relations Institute of Ireland. She's in her first year in the job. She has worked across agency, in-house and leadership roles throughout her career. She's seen media relations evolve from traditional to social and now into a world shaped by speed, data and AI. Media relations is changing fast, but our PR team's actually keeping up. Laura, you're very welcome today. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Jack. It's great to be here.
So you're in the job you're in the Public Relations Institute job since last September. You're probably at the stage where you can't say it's new anymore.
Yeah, well, I still do say new. There's a lot to get my head around. I guess going from agency, almost 20 years of agency, to a membership organisation representing the communications industry. So it's very different, but yeah, I guess I have to let go of the newish. We're still going newish in the role. But
yeah, and look, I'm interested in that. We got to know each other in the last number of years through your previous role in Think House, and I was always very impressed with, you were heading up media relations there. I was always very impressed with, I suppose, look, the winds of change in public relations can be different. You can have some places that say, look, this is the way we've always done it. We're going to do it this way. I never felt that was part of the ethos in Think House. And I can remember I'm old enough to remember when Think House started, where it was sort of like this eruption where, it was youth communications, it was things being done differently, it was research led, it was influencer led, it was all of the things that the sacred cows in public relations would kind of go, you're doing what? Yeah. You're talking to those people on TikTok, people on Instagram, what's that about? So it was a huge kind of, I know you've had a strong relationship with the PRII and you had other voluntary roles in there, but it was a big statement of them I suppose for me anyway, around change to bring you in. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I suppose I was in London before I started at Think House. So I was in a youth communications agency in London. So when I came back into Dublin and settled in, after a couple of years, I kind of had my eye on Think House because I liked how they were doing things. Like you said, they were using technology and looking ahead and looking around corners and looking what young people thought about things before anyone else was. And so I spent a few years there, and I was on the board of the PRI, and yeah, I mean, when the opportunity for this role came across my lap, I did consider it. You know, I was actually in Cannes with Heineken and Think House at the time for one of our campaigns, and got the call. I was like, God, this is so different. This is going to be completely different. But I guess that opportunity to bring what I had learned from the agencies I worked in, from working with a team like Think House, being quite future focused, I was excited by that change and what I could bring to the PRI and the membership. And I think there was, an appetite for somebody different to come in and look at things a bit differently. And part of my plan, we've our 18-month action plan down on paper now. And part of that plan is kind of 3 big pillars is modernisation. The other 2 are community and collaboration. And
just talk to me about that for a second, because and I'm really fascinated about like the dynamism of an agency, like the commercial need to get things done, to be like that is a quarterly or biannually youth report that Think House does that like literally gets to the cutting edge of what the trends are. To a membership organisation, and like not just the PRII, like membership organisations, just like by their very structure, can be dusty. They can be resistant to change. They can be, they can be drawbridges. Like so, like the two are quite different environments.
Yeah, they are and they aren't. Right. I think there was a huge welcome from the board for change. We can all see, when no one's walking around with their eyes closed, the amount of change we're seeing. And actually, to jump into modernisation, to look at how we're representing those who are working in agencies like Think House and in-house comms and internal comms, and the vast amount of change that's happening. I've switched my hat from clients to members. But I think there is a real appetite to see a membership body, represent that change and be at the cutting edge of that change and be ensuring that our members have the most up-to-date information, the most modern information, and really driving that. So I think...
And what's the whole bit? So give us your 3 pillars: modernisation,
community, and collaboration.
Yeah, and I've even seen some nice kind of touchy-feely, and I mean that as a compliment, not as a woo. Go on, you hippie. No, like I've seen kind of yoga and I've seen stuff like that, but I've seen like just not your common gardener kind of community building type events.
Yeah.
But, imagine and I always do this with projects, like we're 3 years hence, it's 2029, we're sitting down inside Media Relations is the best podcast in the world, and you've done a tremendous job in the Public Relations Institute. What does that look like? What like if you were to quantify it now and say, like, if my tenure there has been a massive success, what would the outcomes be? Well,
first and foremost, greater membership figures. That's a testament. That's the bottom line. Greater community engagement. I think with membership bodies, you touched on, like, there is often a leaning towards being quite a transactional experience, but the more we talked to our membership, they want to get out more. People feel like we haven't gotten back to where we were pre-COVID. There's a real hunger for this sense of community, of coming together. I suppose the tricky part is we've got such a broad array of members, from freelance communication professionals to those who work in government departments, to agencies, to teams at banks, at tech companies. So trying to really figure out a product and an offering for our members that serves, we're not going to keep everyone happy all the time, but that we are dipping into what serves our membership base, which is broad.
Talk about change, because I'm I'm incapable of not changing, and I've been the wind of change in lots of places, and like that wind blows people up the wrong way all the time, and like I don't really care. Like there's a bit where I always say to the guys in the office that like if your motivation is to achieve a mission and do good work, you know, the right people will come with you, and that like you will piss people off along the way, but like. And like I'm interested in all professions that there can be a professional moat, and sometimes people can want to protect that. But how do you enact change when there might be resistance and things like that?
We're doing a lot of listening and a lot of consultation. So we have a youth communications group happening in a few weeks. We met with our fellows a few weeks ago. They are people who have been awarded a fellowship, for long-standing service in the industry. A big piece for us at the moment is really looking at how we describe the work we do. We've just talked about change, how we describe the work we do, terminology in our sector, the future of the PRI brand. What does that look like? So making sure we are doing that listening. Okay, there might be a few people that maybe don't agree with the research we're doing, but you can't argue with data. So we've just gone out with a whole piece of research around the terminology, both in the industry. So that's, using PR versus public relations versus communications, and kind of digging into that a little bit deeper, and looking at what that data means for the future of the Institute and for the future of our members, and really trying to ensure that what we are and how we show up in society serves our membership best. So we are doing a lot of that listening. I'm not just coming in and and deciding blind what we do,
And like, talk to me a little bit about AI, because like 18 months ago, we put a good bit of money into a global survey on PR people's attitude towards AI. And the most stark thing that came through in it was that people had no, and this was 12 months ago now, like they had no proper process for doing it. They still weren't paying for it. They were arsing around with free tools. And one of the things I do, I dedicate a couple of hours every couple of weeks to, I go on calls with our clients who, might want to get more out of the MediaHQ technology, and I'll give them a half an hour and we'll go through a framework just to see, how they're managing their media relations and how they could get more out of it. But I had a call yesterday with someone, and person was talking to me about like the stresses and strains on a particular campaign, very detailed campaign. It was an event-based thing with like 100 plus events in it. And at a certain point in the call, I said to this woman, "Do you use AI?" "No." And I said, "All right, yeah, why?" And she said, "I'll be honest with you, I'm not doing something that's designed to replace my job." And I said, "All right, yeah." And I said, "I fundamentally disagree with your approach." And she said, "What do you mean?" Well, I said, if you get coverage for this event, and do you think your client is going to say to you, "That thing you did last Tuesday at the meeting," I said, they're not going to know anyway, but I said, "That way you used AI to get news lines on that, if they're across the news, they're not going to care." And I said, like, the most telling thing someone said to me in recent years was, like, "This thing is coming for you. You better be ready. And you better have a plan, and you better have a strategy, because not having a plan or a strategy is no longer an option." But I still see, I asked the question on all of those calls now. A lot of people are still using the free stuff. A lot of people, and I just said to them, "Do you know what? Don't get one account, get two accounts. Buy two accounts." So what's your experience in the industry of dealing with people like that?
It's so different, like across our membership. How people are using AI. You have those who are cutting edge, they're really investing heavily in AI, understand the power of AI. There is nervousness, and I think there should be nervousness, what you're putting into the system, what you're generating from the system. There's a term, human in the loop, that's going around, everyone says keep the human in the loop. But actually, I think that can be, I was always uneasy about that term, because it felt like the human was the lesser of the two. Like human, we're just kind of in the loop, and
human
the AI
in the Fruit Loop.
And the AI is doing the rest. And I just don't think we should be level footing. So actually, I was at an event, and I forget who said this. So if you're watching or listening, it was on a panel at a reputations event I was at, and they said it's not human in the loop, it should be human in the lead. And I think I do agree with that. I think it should be human in the lead. But to lead, I think you have to be investing heavily in AI and tech, because if you're not, you're going to be left behind.
And like that attitude that I threw out
Yeah.
there, and it's kind of indicative of some of the, like I remember, God, it's 3 years ago now, and we turned on the AI press release writer.
Yeah.
And somebody came on, former news editor who uses MediaHQ. I'm never doing that, ever.
Yeah.
And I said, why? I've been on to my guys to write better. And I said, how's that going for you? Not great. And I said, I've an alternative view on this. And she said, what is it? And I said, well, you're Cristiano Ronaldo when it comes to doing this stuff. You're high performing. You're in the top 1%. And everyone
Yeah.
else in your team is pretty rubbish at it. And I said, here's the thing that they're leveling up now with this tool, and you're a little bit threatened by it. I said, you don't like it. And I've written a book. I wouldn't be afraid. I delegate huge, we have
Yeah.
calls in MediaHQ where I'll say, okay, let's record the next 20 minutes because I want to download some stuff that's really important.
Yeah.
And it generates a transcript, and we get a set of action items out of it, and nobody has to bleed out their eyes, and it's all fine. And
Yeah.
there isn't somebody feverishly writing notes and having to
Yeah.
transcribe them. And, so
And I think it's using the AI as an assistant, and I think that's for communicators where the magic is.
And what about this fear that it's going to, what's wrong with it doing the work, I suppose, if there's someone, I tell you the bit that I just don't understand. You have a lot of experience. I have a
Yeah.
lot of experience.
Yeah.
So when you deal with these things, when you have a lot of experience, you have a lot of judgment, you have a lot of taste, you have a lot of
Yeah.
discerning power about what rubbish is, what's good, what's a good news
Yeah.
line. So if the human is in the
The
process
lead.
like that, and they're using these tools, if you're getting the outcomes for the clients or for the stakeholders in an organization, it's all like throwing buns at an elephant. It doesn't really matter what we think. If the thing is going to eat us all whole, it's going to eat us all whole anyway.
Yeah,
We may as
yeah.
well be having a good time along the way.
The one I suppose, I've been talking to a few people in the industry about the jobs piece, and I think what I would love to see more of is the universities empowering young people to become AI superstars, because I think that hasn't, in my experience, hasn't happened yet, where the universities are leading and they're creating these AI experts on graduating. There are people leaving college and they're afraid of it. And I think for young people coming into the industry, I would be concerned about the entry-level roles and what's happening at that space. There was a job ad that went up at an organisation, one of our member organisations, for a junior role, inundated, scarily inundated. So I'd be looking at, okay, well, there's an issue where we are seeing more junior professionals or graduates looking for roles, and they're not. The jobs aren't there at the junior level as much. So I would be looking to the universities now to say, right, how do we empower? How do we skill these young, hungry graduates to come into our organisations and help us transform? Because right now it's middle management, senior, that are making the decisions around AI implementation.
And the other thing is I remember somebody in the Irish Times saying to me a couple of years ago, well, we can't make any money. This is 10 years ago. We can't make any money from the digital stuff yet. And I went, well, still doesn't mean it's not going to mess you up. I said, just because you haven't figured it out doesn't mean it's not going to come and eat your lunch. So you can either, if it's tango dancing that's coming on, you can either do the, and I know you're a dancer, but you can either, you said you bring your dance shoes today, but you can either do the dance or not do the dance. But that's what's on the dance floor. And if you're, my worry is, and I'd love to hear your view on this, is that there's a hardcore of people in the industry that 3.5 years in, they still haven't got the frequency. They still haven't got that, this is coming. It's coming hard.
It's here.
It's
here. It's not even it's coming anymore. I feel like it's here. It's now. We're seeing that. And I think I do feel very strongly about human in the lead. And sorry, I can't quote whoever said that to me. I'm not robbing your phrase. Human in the lead, because I just feel like I haven't seen a press release yet generated by AI that you just blindly send out. I have not seen that yet. So I do think that nuance, that intuition that humans have, I use it as an assistant. Use it as your assistant. It's going to supercharge the work that you do. Keep that human in the lead element is what I would say.
No, I have though. I had one of those calls a couple of weeks ago, and it was of a food business that they put something up on MediaHQ, and it was shared by a marketing person, and they kind of missed the kind of context of sharing it. And I said that was a missed opportunity, and the woman said, "What do you mean?" Well, I said that looks like it would have been a really good business story in the Sunday Times, as a brand repositioning piece. I said I could imagine reading it on a Sunday. And obviously, I was bringing my human in the loop PR experience to play.
Human in the lead.
In the lead, sorry, in the lead, not in the Fruit Loop, in the lead. And but I gave what was put in, and I said, "Hi, this was shared. It was completely misconstrued. There's no top line on the story. Could you rewrite it, please, as a business story in the Sunday Times, as it might appear?"
It didn't. You gave it the prompts to do that. It didn't draft. Like you said, I think human head.
Yeah.
This would be a brilliant business story in the Sunday Times. You picked a specific.
That's true.
Like you gave it so much context there.
Yeah.
So I don't think going to an AI to say draft a press release based on this. I don't think we're there yet where it's fully automated. You used your years of experience to go, I actually spot that would be a brilliant business story. So that's exactly the point. Like human in the lead. You need that nuance, that intelligence to and your experience to make those decisions with AI as your assistant.
So if you're watching or listening to this and you want to upskill, you want to be ready for what's here, you want to be the right side of this, in your current job and based on your experience of like dealing with changing environments, what specific advice would you give to someone to get ready to really dig in and get ready?
I would say be looking at, all staff training for your teams, getting really into upskilling now, your staff with AI tools and systems. Like we've looked at our entire education portfolio. We have a new head of training and education, shout out to Rob Farrell, and he is big on AI and digital. So we've got new courses across the board on AI learning, and we can't keep up with the demand. People do want it. Yes, there is hesitation, and some people are further ahead, some people are than others, but there is hunger, and I'd say just get your teams upskilled. Get them educated on AI, what it can do. Get familiar with the EU AI Act that's coming down the tracks in August. And also we have the our own Irish AI strategy. So there's going to be lots more around that, as we approach August. Just get under the hood.
And start breaking, from your time in Think House, start breaking eggs, start ideating, start using it, start experimenting. Like in recent weeks, I have started just what you said. Rather than asking it the answer, I now ask it the question. So rather than, I'll now say, I'm doing X and Y, I'm going to give you a transcript of a conversation I had. Can you please write me the prompt?
Yes.
To achieve this? And it'll blow your mind in that it will write you a question that you wouldn't conceive in a million years. And then it'll say, do you want me to run this prompt? So it's like everything. Unless you're willing to experiment and jump that fear gap that people have, because if you don't, what do you think there are huge systematic changes coming down the line very soon then?
I think so. I think sometimes it feels like AI is the only conversation, and we have to remember we've been through this before with the introduction of social media. There is always this initial fear, the unknown, it's never going to take off. Then when it does, people start to kind of dip their toes. I think we're still going to need the strategic thinking and the skills of communicators. I don't think all of a sudden AI is going to be able to do all those things, but I do think it's going to be a huge asset to us. I think AI in the mix of everything else that's happening in the world, we're seeing misinformation, disinformation, just the noise pollution is actually, there are trends where people are retreating from, kind of broadcast social media to, we're seeing a lot more brands do community channels, closed WhatsApp groups, I don't know, I can't remember the name of that band that blew up over the over the last few weeks. They're selling out, but they've developed a whole new way of writing music, and it's all human. So whilst, we're in this, explosion of AI, there are these interesting things happening where people are looking at more human.
And do you worry then, like it is interesting for people like, you're not as old as I am, but you've been around a while. But there's a bit where, like, when you have 20 years experience, that like you've done your 10,000 hours, like you've done the late nights, you've done the hard yards, you've crafted all the press releases, you've looked at all the strategies. So there's a bit where you bring that grey matter to the new thing and you look at differently. I have a huge worry about the graduates coming out and the kind of AI eating that experience whole on them, and that so that when you have a bit of experience, you have context in which you can look at these things.
Yeah.
When you're new to it, that's a real challenge.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's why the universities play a key role here as well in giving graduates real confidence and coming out, for agencies and for communications teams who are looking to hire, it's going to be so much more attractive to hire those who can come in and absolutely reimagine how you do business with AI, So I think for universities to be ensuring that we have graduates coming out who are completely confident in AI. So I think we have a job to do there for sure.
So we're all going to be like a very tight-knit community, chilled on yoga. We're going to know all about the future when it's finished. But to finish today, we want to do your rapid fire round to ask you some questions. We asked you to prepare some questions before you came in today.
This was really hard, and I'm still not sure what my answers are, but anyway,
you know that great phrase, if it was easy, they'd all be doing it. So let's start. Give me one media moment that's changed how you work.
It was actually my first campaign for the Esophageal Cancer Fund when I worked at Drury, and we landed coverage on Lollipop Day for Esophageal Cancer Fund. And on the back of that coverage, the donations that came in. So that immediately, at the very start of my career, signalled the impact, the absolute real world impact that PR and communications can have.
Second question. Give me one example of something that failed that you learned from.
How long have you got?
Just one.
In London, I sent a full global communications strategy to the wrong Claire. It was a Claire from another brand. And this is when I worked in London, I got summoned to the brand I was meant to send it to. I got summoned to their HQ in London and we nearly lost that account. I was very new. I was 24, so young. But oh my God, I learned so much. Did you know the minute
you sent it, or did you?
I knew 5 minutes later when she replied all with the rest of the other brand team still on the email, "You've sent this to the wrong Claire." So it was, yeah. And I think we should talk more about our mistakes. I actually would love to do a series on the mistakes I made.
And how was it received? How was it received?
How was what received?
Like when you were summoned and
I just had to apologise and just say I'm incredibly sorry. Like what could I do? We're all human. The theme of the day. We're all human. We make mistakes. And actually, when we talk about our mistakes, when I ever tell that story or others, it's amazing to hear. What's your biggest mistake?
I once sent out a press release. When I was working for the Progressive Democrats, Michael McDowell said, "Can you send this out?" And I was really tired. It was in the middle of election campaign. I actually printed out 20 copies of it, walked into Leinster House, handed it out, and before I came back and emailed it out, Mark Brannock, who was in the Irish Times, rang me and went, "This stuff is dynamite. This stuff calling Bertie's project a Ceausescu era project." I hadn't even read the thing, right? Oh, God. And my phone lit up and Mary Harney rang me and she said, "Why did you send that out?" She said, "He told me you read it and you approved it." I said, "I did nothing of the sort." And I saw red then. I rang Michael McDowell. Imagine this. I rang Michael McDowell and I effed him out of it. I said, "Don't be telling people I read it. You told me to send it out. I was doing my job." And he was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but I never read it." Uh-huh. And it was all over. It was like the lead story in all the papers the following day, and they were talking about it for 2 weeks afterwards. And
oh no, yours is worse.
I was too tired. I said, I'll just send it out. Yeah.
So yeah, let's do it. Let's do an event series on mistakes.
That'd be great, actually.
Yeah.
What's one universal belief about public relations that you think is wrong or overstated?
I actually think we're in a space where PR as a term has been taken and used in the media as it's like a bad word in the media, PR, and it's
like gloss and spin.
yes, using the same lineup as misinformation, spin, PR. I'm flat out writing letters to the editors since starting in this role, and also in the new creator and influencer world. You know, when I ask my little cousins what they think PR is, they're like, oh, it's a box you get sent. You get sent a PR from. So I think the word itself, like it's completely misunderstood. So and I don't think it describes what strategic communications is and does. And I think there's a job to be done there.
What's one piece of advice you wish you had earlier in your career?
Stop stressing so much. It's PR, not ER.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
It's good.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
stressed a lot in my younger career. It was everything, and I look back and don't stop stressing so much. It sounds like a really, really basic one, but I think we talk about mental health and work stress and work life balance more now, and I think that's brilliant because we didn't back then.
But there's a big adrenaline, like I was talking about it earlier today. There's a big adrenaline rush around sending out a press release, and on that day where you're sending out, you get this high. And then there's a crash after it, and you come into the office the next day, it's quiet, and you feel useless, and it's that kind of cycle, and we all get addicted to it, and it's it's like live, the light is on, and like the press conference is on, and you're like, what is wrong with me?
It's like talking about that, the coverage, the sending out the buzz, and even the Lollipop Day coverage, and seeing all that happen and the impact. I think if you start in communications and PR and you don't get a buzz, I'm like, you're in the wrong career.
No, exactly.
Change career.
And if you're not kind of gently terrified and excited all in the one kind of wrap up, and that like talking to people and getting that nod of recognition when you have a big thing happening and you're thinking, like, is anyone going to show up? I'm not going to get any coverage. Like we used to have a joke where like if something like amazing happened, like we got a lead story, the lads go, you can retire now. And like, today's the day. It's never getting any better than this. Front page of the Irish Times, you may pack your satchel there today. Last question. What book do you think everyone in your job should read?
Bonus Time by Brian Penny. Have you
read it? Tell me about it. No, I haven't.
Brian Penny is an ex-addict, and it talks about his dark days. Sorry, it's not specifically for people in communications, but just anyone. He talks about the darkest days. He almost lost his life to addiction, and the how he climbed back from that. He was 15 years, I think I've got the time frame right, as an addict, and he's now a lecturer in Trinity. He is an unbelievable man, and he'll make you appreciate every single day for what it is after reading that book.
Why did it resonate with you so much?
Because you can get up and you can, get stuck in the mundane and the small stresses, and actually this really reminds you that this day is a gift. You're actually not guaranteed today, you're not guaranteed tomorrow. So it really is a reminder that I think about that book. I read that book about, I'd say it's about 6-7 years ago, and I honestly think about it every second day. So read it. It's amazing.
Thanks a million for joining us today. It was a great conversation. It's great to catch up and have a laugh. The best of luck in the job, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you in further episodes of Inside Media Relations.
Thanks so much, Jack.
Thanks for watching and listening to this episode of Inside Media Relations. Thanks for tuning in. If you like the show, please like and subscribe, and come back the next time when we'll take a deeper look inside media relations. See you next time.